Good morning, everybody. This is Diggs. It's another beautiful day out here in the Pacific Northwest, and we just got done with the 2.5-year JP anniversary stream. We did it with Umbra and Odaiba. If you aren't familiar, Umbra is a JP content creator. Odaiba does all the translations for Reddit, and we got a lot going on. We got Final Fantasy 13, and we got Final Fantasy Tactics. So let's go ahead and dig in. So this live stream was jam-packed with information. It didn't have a lot of details. Surprisingly, we did learn a little bit about Hope, Lightning, and Snow. We learned a little bit about the Final Fantasy Tactics EX units. There's no new Final Fantasy Tactics units coming out. They're just doing EX and Secondary Mastery. But there's a lot going on. It's really cool, and there's a lot of things going on with War of the Visions in general. So first off, let's start talking about Final Fantasy 13. Hope coming out is going to be a light element unit. He's going to be free. He's going to come out with a boomerang as well, and he's going to be the first boomerang unit in the game. We're also going to get Lightning. Lightning is going to be a hybrid type unit, very similar to some of the Persona 5 units where she's going to have access to missile and slash attacks. We're unsure, kind of the specifics on like maybe her counters or her passives. She is going to have some pretty good like slash based lightning attacks. She's going to have very large range missile attacks as well. So it does seem like she's going to be like a really good like entry level beginner entry with lightning potentially as a unit. And then Snow, of course, is going to be a ice striking unit. And if you guys have followed my stream for a long time, you will know that I've said ice needs a main striking unit for a long time because you have all of these ice units like Oron, like Velric, like Aranea, that all have access to Sub-Pugilist, and we don't have a main iced unit that uses striking attacks. I mean, even Barrett has access to a striking attack. So it's pretty exciting to see Snow come out. He is going to have some interesting details about him. He's going to have endurance, which is the same ability that Dark Leela has, where she'll be able to heal herself. Like she auto heals herself if her HP gets low enough, or if Guts is procced. Apparently it was kind of said that Lightning had a follow-up attack. I don't know if that's true. But all of them are going to be coming with Espers or with vision cards as well. They didn't say whether or not any Espers would be coming with them. We didn't really hear that at all as they were talking about them. And they did go into some very moderate details. They talked about the limit burst. They kind of talked about what these units are going to do. And nothing really stood out as remarkable. They're kind of what you would expect. An interesting thing about Hope is he has typeless magic. So he's not going to be like a light element magic caster. He's going to be kind of elementalist magic. And he has access. I mean, this looks pretty earthy. But this spell and ability here is actually going to be typeless. It's going to be pretty interesting. Kind of seeing what they're coming out with. Snow definitely has some issues with range. He's going to have access to Sub Ninja, which will give him Shikuchi, which will make him pretty powerful. He also has Guts, which is pretty good as well. And again, we talked about he has Endurance, which will be really powerful. And for those that don't know, Endurance is what made Little Leela really powerful, kind of as well. And then of course we have the 3 vision cards coming out. So we have a vision card for Hope, which will be free. We have a vision card for Lightning, so it's going to be Alexander, Odin, and Shiva, right? Because those are the 3 Espers from Final Fantasy 13. So we got the information on all of that, and that was super cool to kind of see. We know Lightning is going to be coming out with a sword, which, I mean, we've had so many swords in this game. The question is whether or not it's going to be viable. And then we got this little gem right here, and this is what I am really excited for, is this image of Fang. Y'all, Fang, okay, they got the War of the Visions style art for Fang already. I'm calling it right now. They said Fang's gonna show up in the story. I think we're gonna get Fang as a unit whenever Final Fantasy 13 Part 2 comes around. Like, you don't just make this art, right? Like, you don't just have this art just like sitting around right? Like, it's not just like, oh yeah, you know, we just have Fang's art chilling, right? Like, it's not something you just have chilling on the side. So I'm super hyped for Fang. You know, when Kefka was kind of the villain in Final Fantasy VI, we didn't have Kefka art done, really, right? So I'm very excited for potentially getting a Fang unit in the game. Like, she's legit my favorite unit in Final Fantasy 13. So I'm praying to God that they maybe like surprise release her, because the Final Fantasy 13 event is going to be so kind of long. I'm stoked. You can't unstoke me from that. Now, we did get a lot of things. There was a lot of mini games, of course, going on. And then they got to the next big announcement, which was Final Fantasy Tactics Return. Now, they are not releasing any new units. They're not releasing any voicing. And there's really no collaboration event coming out. Midlight's Deep will return with Final Fantasy Tactics, but Final Fantasy Tactics is releasing with the EX for their units, and they're going to be releasing with the secondary mastery. And they didn't give specifics on these, but they kind of talked about all of the units individually. They talked about Orlando, how they hope they didn't make him too overpowered, right? Especially considering you have Orlando EX and with his second mastery coming out. They wanted to give him something that made him more enduring to kind of take hits. Keep in mind, you know, Lightning is releasing. We have Esther on global. Like, Lightning is suddenly becoming like a huge powerhouse. Like, it already is on the global side. Like, they're going to need to release some more Earth units to keep Lightning in check. They talked about Ramza. Ramza, of course, has access to Shout, which is like a party-wide buff. They talked about how they want him to be more of a buffing unit. They talked about Agrius kind of taking on that role of status ailments and tank, especially with like Snow coming out as well. So, you know, do you really want to go for Snow if you can potentially get Agrius? You know, questions here. Mustadio, they want to make his status ailments land more. I see Mustadio more as like a Miche unit, with the way Miche can land a high percentage chance of hitting Toad on the opponent. So I see them probably doing something like that with him. They said Delita has problems with movement, so they might be addressing his movement or his short range. And then they talked about Garion in general, just as like a Dark Soldier brawler, and how they kind of wanted to work with him. Personally, what I'm excited about with potential tactics revision is going to be the return of the vision cards. Scions of House Beowulf, I really want. They didn't mention that those were coming back. I'm assuming they are. And then the Reeds VC coming back as well. I've been wanting to max those for a really long time. And of course, not pulling for Ramza is one of my biggest regrets in the game. Not so much recently, but he's notoriously one of the only units I don't have. Right now it's Ramza and Renan are my two units that I don't have, and I didn't pull on him the second time, and I regret it ever since then. The rest of the stream was pretty chill. They went through a little bit of the details of kind of all the units, where they were planning. They talked about gifts, and they kind of talked about you know, what the current state of you know, JP War Divisions is, and what some quality of life comings are. So let's talk about some of the quality of lives here. They were talking about changing the small NRG potions that they get into 200 NRG daily. So that would be, you know, really good. They talked about the lack of access to NRG in general. They talked about, you know, having to farm events quite a bit. So I believe they said they were going to add red orbs and such to main story quests. They're going to increase the drop rate of items more, and they're going to try and make the game just overall a little bit more accessible. For those of you that are wondering about the reincarnation system, it was not mentioned here. There's going to be another stream in June, which is probably going to have all of the details and all of the information there. If you guys are curious about the reincarnation system, Bismarck, of course, has some data mine information that has been posted about it on Reddit. So just look it up. But it's basically the next evolution after EX and second masteries for units. So there's a lot going on, and there's a lot of things that didn't get talked about. The social media program that like Umbra and I hammer, like that we hate, was talked about. It's called Linked First. That was talked about briefly, and Hirono talked about how, that's kind of delayed. Again, it feels like it's always delayed because they're focusing more on working with quality of life and other things within the game, which is great. And I think that's a really good direction to go. They talked about being able to skip guild quests in a single click, which is incredible. It's basically just going to save the results from the last time that you ran it. And then, you'll just be able to click it, auto clear, and be done with it. You're not going to have to spend a lot of time clearing it. They talked about trust stones a little bit. I don't really care about kind of the auto trust stone equip feature. What's more interesting is that they are basically doing trust stone loadouts. So like if you have a trust stone set that's maybe really good for weapons, right? You can equip a loadout that's for a weapon in case you want to change like trust stone weapons on the fly. If you have a like pierce trust stone kit, right? Like you can switch to the Pierce Trust Stone, you can switch to the Magic Trust Stone kit. So I really like the idea of Trust Stone loadouts, and I'm really excited. They did talk briefly a little bit about automating, Trust Stone acquisition, and kind of potentially making that system easier. So you may see more changes. This is kind of the only thing that we got to see. They changed some visual appearances with the vision cards. They're making the eggs easier to use. You can literally just like click the eggs on and off for Ovalite now. There's a lot going on. They kind of acknowledge that they're listening to a lot of the feedback on the JP side, and they're just overall trying to make the game a little bit more accessible for players. Towards the end, Hirono spent a little bit of time talking about kind of what's coming for the game. He had mentioned that we're going to be likely seeing more Crystal Warrior storylines or another stories. So we'll probably be getting more of those. Overall, though, it was a really short stream. It was about 1 hour and 40 minutes. I would encourage you guys to go watch the whole thing. Umbra and Odaiba were amazing. I was really blessed to have them on stream with me. And yeah, it was just a really great experience. And I was really glad to kind of get everything that they're sending. There's a lot of stuff that they came out with. And I definitely wasn't expecting Tactics EX. I was kind of expecting Final Fantasy 13, but to get both of them, I think is going to be really good. There's going to be a lot of conversations happening about EX units here in the near future. So thanks so much for watching, guys, and have a great rest of your day.